This article came out on the Daily Faceoff from Matt Larkin. And the headline is, these 2023-2024 non-playoff teams could make it, and 2024-25, and these playoff teams could miss. So we're going to talk about the teams that he thinks can make it.
Is one of them the Blackhawks?
One of them is the Blackhawks.
What? Oh.
And
damn,
he's got some reasoning here, and let's talk about the reasoning. We'll share what he has to say, and then we'll kind of give our thoughts on it. Matt Larkin says, quote, "If you think I played it too safe with the Devils, it's time to provoke some spit takes. Chicago?
Wait.
1 year after it finished with the NHL's 31st best record? Hear me out. We'll start with the Connor Bedard piece of it. He averaged .897 points per game. .90. Be fair. As an 18-year-old, the only two 18-year-olds this millennium to exceed that scoring rate are Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. More on that later. They both underwent major production leaps as second-year players, winning the Hart and Art Ross trophies and making the playoffs. Given Bedard is on a generational talent trajectory, it's reasonable to believe he can explode into the 100-point stratosphere as a sophomore if he has a decent enough team around him. Kyle Davidson set out to provide that this offseason, adding Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen to the top six, with Ilya Mikheyev and Pat Maroon sprinkled in for depth. Factor in Taylor Hall's return for an injury, and that's a vastly improved forward core, with TJ Brody and Alec Martinez added to the D core, and Laurent Brossoit, arguably the NHL's best backup this past season, improving their crease. The Hawks look significantly improved on paper. Best of all, they achieved that without a bunch of ill-advised long-term contracts. So there's your justification. Mainly
let's go.
Focus on Connor Bedard. So for funsies, and using the names Matt Larkin gave, and I also included Austin Matthews in this study. Sidney Crosby, as a rookie, had 102 points in 81 games. That's 1.25 points per game. Second year jumped to 120 points in 79 games. That's 1.52 points per game, so that's a plus 0.27 increase. Connor McDavid went from 48 points in 45 games, a 1.07 points per game, to 100 points in 80 games. That's a 1.25 point per game total, plus 1.8.
Following you so far.
Austin Matthews jumped from 69 nice points in 82 games, that's 0.084, to 62 points in 62 games, that's a point per game. That's 0.14 jump. So it's an average of a 0.02 jump from year one to year two with those three players. Bedard had 0.90 points per game last year. That would jump him to 0.920, which would give him a 75-point pace for next season.
75-point pace for next season.
So he needs to make an even bigger jump, is what you're telling
me. He would have to be, yeah.
He'd almost have to double his points.
However, he won't be playing with Philip Kurashev and Nick Foligno and Ryan Donato most of the year.
Right.
One would hope.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not, and again, I averaged this out over 82 for him. So it's a really big jump to ask for Connor Bedard. The biggest jump the three made was Crosby, 0.27 points per game was the jump.
Yeah. And that, so I'll point, let's say if Bedard was to mimic that, a quarter of a point per game more per.
That'd be 76 points.
No.
Yep.
From last year to this, from last year to this,
he would jump from
season,
0.90 to 0.927. That's 76 points in 82 games.
No, you're doing 0.025 is what you're saying. But you're saying he did a 0.25 jump from 1.27 to 1.52 is 0.25, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying 0.02 something.
That's a jump from...
So if Bedard went from 0.9 and added 0.25, it would be 1.15, if I'm doing the math right.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Or 1.05.
Yeah, you're right.
Whatever.
My math is wrong.
Yeah.
Delete that graphic.
I was told there would be no math.
Me too.
But no, so if Bedard added 0.25 points per game to what he did last year.
Right. It'd be
right?
over a point a game.
He'd be over a point a game.
So he'd be right about 90 points.
Yeah.
Roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Which would still...
that would be much better, and that would mimic the Crosby, jump. And I'm thinking if you get Connor Bedard around 90 points next year, like that's a success for the season.
Absolutely.
And I think it's on it feels realistic.
Certainly doable.
It feels realistic so long as A, he's healthy all year, and B, the other 4 players that you can pencil into the top 6 no matter where they are. Hall, Bertuzzi, Tavo, and Kurashev.
And hopefully Reichel.
And maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe Jason Dickinson. Like, it just depends on how things are matched up. But if they're all relatively healthy for the season, if that can stay together for the most part, you have a good chance of Bedard leading the way in over a point per game pace. And I think that at least makes it a less than 0% chance that they could push for a playoff spot, or more than a 0% chance.
Yeah, I just think everything has to go right.
Yes,
It does.
And some other teams have to have everything go wrong. Because the Blackhawks had 52 points last year.
Yeah.
The Vegas Golden Knights was the last team to make the playoffs last season in the West with 98 points. You'd almost have to double your points.
Yeah.
That's
a lot.
really freaking hard to do.
It is. And the roster's not that much better.
I mean, it is better. It
is significantly better.
It is better.
It's not twice as good.
No. But it's better offensively. It's definitely better defensively, and it's better goaltending. Like, every time Peter Mrazek is on the bench isn't an automatic loss anymore. What it seemed to be, except for 4 games last season. It's just, it's fun to write that, and I know that, like, yes, if Connor Bedard has 120 points, that might help, but I just think if this team can get above 70, it's a successful season. If it can get 20 points in the standings, that's huge. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I say it's pretty unlikely.
Extremely
unlikely. Who knows? Maybe they go and they start the season on a barn burner, and it's Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden they're looking good to where if they play 500 the rest of the year, they can back their way into the second wild card spot. I don't know. I think this year is still going to be the development of the young guys is still the main goal here, especially at the Rockford level. But in order for them to get anywhere close to a wild card spot, Bedard is going to have to take that jump. You're going to need that 100-point season from him.
Yeah.
And you're going to need at least 4 other guys to score 20 or more. Do you have that?
Maybe.
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 You would think Bertuzzi and Tavo, if they're playing with Bedard all year, should have the opportunity to put up 20. They're definitely going to have the opportunity to pick up a ton of assists. Who else is your 20-goal scoring threats? Kurashev, if he's not playing with Bedard, I don't see it.
True. What if he's playing with Taylor Hall?
Maybe, but Taylor Hall, I can't.
And if Frank Nazar makes the team and he's with Kurashev.
I just can't trust Taylor Hall to play more than 15 games.
I agree with you.
And even if he plays 60, does he score 20? I don't know. We haven't seen Taylor Hall at full health in 2 years.
I will say we have some recent history. The 2022-23 New Jersey Devils went from 63 points the year before to 112 the next season. That is the biggest jump in NHL single season history. Right. 63 to 112 points in 1 year.
Jack Hughes go, MVP quality season helped.
What, a 49-point jump?
Yeah. And then what happened the following year? They were right back to missing. They lost.
Yeah, they crashed.
60 points. I'd rather have more of a linear trajectory than doing, an American Eagle version of your standards.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'm going to go in the expectations somewhere between 70 and 75 points this season. Therefore, I think that's logical, reasonable, real world expectations. I don't think you can be disappointed too much, because unless it's another disastrous health season, that's achievable. Yeah. And anything beyond that is gravy. It's great.
Man, you talking about Thanksgiving, you're talking about gravy, you're getting me hungry, Greg.
I am hungry.
I don't know. I think there is a 99% chance they do not make the playoffs. I think if you have every player on the roster, regardless of who it is, if Nazar's here, if he's not, like everyone would have to play their best potential season and stay healthy.
Right.
And even at that, I think you're looking at maybe you're flirting with the second wild card. Because like you guys have said, like this team has improved drastically from last year, but it is not a put the stamp down. All these guys together make the playoffs.
Well, that Devils team, for reference, had, I think it was a 99-point year from Hughes, then an 80-year point from Hischier. Like, who's the second guy to Bedard that's going to have those huge numbers? And they also had two guys in the 70s in points. Like, you're just not, even if Bedard hits 100 points, which is not completely out of the realm of possibility, where else is it coming from? Even if you love Nazar, he's not going to have 70 points as a rookie.
No, and he might not even play half of the season in the NHL. Like he might play almost all of the year in Rockford, the way that the roster has been set up. I think if you have Bertuzzi, you have Teuvo, their career highs are what, in the 60s? I know Teuvo is like a 63-point career high. Bertuzzi's not too far off from that either. What was his career high here as I look it up as I'm talking? 62 points.
Teuvo had 76 points in 82 games in 2018-19.
Okay, so 76 and
that's
62.
a career high.
So that's career high for those guys. So if they flirt with their 60s and upper 60 points, that's great. That'd be wonderful. Taylor Hall, if he's healthy for more than 50 games, if he can be close to 40, 50 points on that kind of pace for the season, like that's great. Like I think even if all those things happen, you're still talking about a team that's going to make a significant jump, but that's a huge hurdle to get into playoff contention.
And if you're going to move into the playoffs, that means someone's coming out. Who that made the playoffs last year is that much worse than they were last year.
I don't know.
Dallas is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Winnipeg, you can argue Winnipeg, that 110 points, is that repeatable?
Did the Kings get better?
Yeah,
not really.
But if the Kings stay the same, they're a 100-point team. Like, they're not jumping the Kings.
They lost. They lost Alec Martinez and Victor Arvidsson.
That's true.
Alec Martinez hasn't been on that team in 3
They
years.
lost Matt Roy too.
Vegas.
Like, I don't know. I just don't see a team that's gonna, like, Nashville got better. They had 99 points. They got better.
Yeah,
I can see Nashville swapping spots with Winnipeg this year. It just, I don't see enough teams. You could argue.
The other thing
you could argue Vancouver's going to come back to earth a little bit. I think they
lost
overachieved.
Mikheyev, they're screwed.
Yeah, they are totally. And Zadorov. No one.
Zadorov,
I mean,
yep.
how can you function without Nikita Zadorov? It's not possible.
Vegas is still going to be Vegas and be competitive.
Who in front of them that didn't make it got better? You could say Utah is better than they were.
Utah got
certainly
better.
Not Minnesota, not St. Louis, but those teams were 35 and 40 points better than the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Even with the improvements,
Well,
are
and
you
the other-
40-point improved? You're
The other
not.
thing, too, is when those teams get worse, the teams that are ahead of them have an easier time playing them, too. When there's less parity, if St. Louis and Minnesota are also bad, they're easier games for Colorado and Nashville and for all those teams to play, too. So where the Hawks might gain some ground, those other teams are going to have 2-3 extra wins every year, too, because they're just not as good as they were last year or as challenging.
Yes.
Yeah, in the Western Conference, I just don't see any of the teams that made it this year. Like, yeah, you can argue that some of them may miss, but I don't know who.
I mean, Winnipeg and Vancouver.
Maybe the best one I would say is LA. Might be the team that falls out because they were the third team in the Pacific, but they had the same amount of points as Nashville and just one ahead of Vegas. So, and there's a 6-point gap between Vegas as wild card 2 and the Blues as the first team out in the West at 92 points. So even if you're in the mid 90s, you're still short of what it of the standard last year.